One of the biggest events of Abraham's life is God telling him to take Isaac up, basically with the implication that he was going to offer Isaac as a sacrifice. Now, we know that that ended up not happening. But in the context of the times, not as a Hebrew, but in the context of the times, human sacrifice was a very real thing as well. And it was fairly common throughout the world as some form of human sacrifice. I could go on and on. Point being, when we see this sacrifice, this word sacrifice, when we start this chapter, understand what it's talking about. When they're talking about sacrifice, they say we need a sacrifice to God, it means we need to go get the best from our flock. And we need to take it and offer that to God. Or in the way that whole process had been perverted by the first century, you have to go to the temple, and then you have to go to the money changers, and you have to buy a pre-approved sacrifice. But that's what sacrifice meant. What Romans 12 starts with is a sacrifice of a different nature. So I'm going to read the first two verses of Romans 12. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. So this, to our ears, this may not be remarkable, but at this time, this is a complete diversion from how they'd been asked to live before, what they thought. He's not asking for blood offerings. He's not asking for the best of your flock. He is what he's asking for, and what he desires from us is for our lives to be the sacrifice, a living sacrifice. So what does that mean? It's a far higher standard. Absolutely. The implications are that our worship to God is everything we do, our lives. So when we interact with our family, when we raise our children, when we relate to our parents or our grandparents, that's part of worship. When we go to school and we interact with other students or teachers or coworkers, we go to work, we interact with coworkers, we interact with someone who is our boss, or maybe someone that reports to us. Do we think of that we are living, that's part of our life? When we're driving down the road, when we go to the store, everything about our lives, and we come in contact with people and interact with people, that is all part of being a living sacrifice. That is a much, much higher standard than simply, and we know that this wasn't God's intention from day one. But there's kind of an implication in the law that we can and sometimes we get glimpses of this when Jesus is interacting with Pharisees. It's kind of an implication that, if you do this, this, and this, then you're good. So you can. A lot of these other things don't matter. Give you a perfect example. The many Jews, wealthy Jews, would, without going into the details, would donate all their money to the church or to the synagogue, to the temple, but they would not care for their parents. But they're doing good, right? They're pleasing God. Well, I think it's clear from Jesus' response that not taking care of your parents, if you can't, you can't. But if you're not, because there's some religious technicality that you can get out of that, God's not pleased with that. But the standard here is a pretty steep standard. It's not good enough to just offer a sacrifice here and there, and it's all good. How we live our lives on a daily basis is our worship, and the worship that He's looking for. So we understand that, we know that, and we're all good at that. I'm not. And I'm studying for this, and I'm preparing for this, and I'm thinking to myself, just this past week, all the things that I did wrong, all the times that I wasn't perfect, and all the times that I did something that I came up short, and I didn't act and conduct myself in the way that I think that I should, and I know that God should. I mean, this is a hard standard, and we could probably, as I said, a lot of things in Romans. We could probably spend a month of classes just in these first two verses about how about what this really means and really unpack it. But verse 2 kind of goes along with the same line. I mean, same idea. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. Do not be conformed to this world. That's not easy. I mean, we're in the world all day long, every day. So how do we not be conformed by the world? How do we avoid getting just totally subsumed, consumed by the world and the Sure it is. Sure it is. And that's actually part of, I think, what he says. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern. That's what we're doing when we come here. I mean, that's
Or with all the other Christians that believe the same way we do, that aren't, oh, don't think that. No, God's love, you have to accept all this. You have to feel that it's all right. And that's not the way it is. And by being here, that strengthens us to continue with that frame of mind.
I think when it talks about renewal, that's part of what we're doing here. Testing. I think there's other versions that use a different word, but how do we test? Well, I think example that I've thought of for this was, there's people that have said, that say, well, God wants me to be happy, so they use that as a cover to do things that are patently sin. So by testing, saying if I'm not sure about something, how to check this out against other, how does this match up with what the Bible says about things? What does this say about, or what do other people, the people that fellow Christians believe? Not just going by what we think or what the current public opinion might be on that matter. The discerning the will of God, what is good and acceptable. It is it's important that we're together as Christians to encourage each other, to challenge each other. It's important that we spend time in the Word, that we know what God does. It does two things. One, I mean, more than two, but it does two main things. One is ensures that our mind is where it needs to be, and it also gives us insight as to how God wants us to be. God is the creator, is our creator, so he knows us better than we know ourselves. But that's a tall challenge, to live our lives as a living sacrifice while not being conformed to this world when we are in this world. and every day. The next section, a little bit of a pivot. I'm going to read verses 3 through 8 because it's kind of the same concept here. For by the grace given to me, I say that to everyone among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think with sober judgment, and each according to the measure of faith that God has assigned. For in one body we have many members, and the members do not all have the same function. So we, though many, are one body in Christ, and individually members of one another. Having gifts that differ according to the grace given to us, let us use them. If prophecy, in proportion to our faith. If service, in our serving. The one who teaches in his teaching. The one who exhorts in his exhortation. The one who contributes in his generosity. The one who leads with zeal, and the one who does acts of mercy and cheerfulness. There's a danger. I mean, this is just part of human. We are all different, and obviously, I think we all recognize that we're better collectively because we're different. If we all had the same strengths and weaknesses, then it wouldn't be. It would be a dull place, but it would be very lacking in areas. But there is a human tendency to think what I'm good at is really important, and what you're good at is less important. And this whole passage here is a challenge to that. It's a challenge to say, is to say what everybody has something that they bring, and it's all of value. And don't think that what you bring or what I bring is of greater value than what another brother or sister brings. Sometimes there's some passages like this, but sometimes people I've heard people use this passage and say, well, I'm not good at this, so therefore, I'm not going to do it. That what this passage is not saying is what you shouldn't do. It's saying what you should do. Everybody has talents. Everybody has gifts, and it's what is imperative is that we all use those gifts, and we don't look at what our gifts being more or less important than those of others. It takes all kinds to be part of the family of God. Just as an example, acts. Sometimes we, in the church, people that do acts of service, little behind the scenes things, bringing meals and things like that. It's really, it's not as recognized as it should be. You don't get the same recognition doing that a pulpit minister gets. And I remember, just as a personal example, the church, we were living in the Houston area at the time, and we had 2 small children, little toddlers at the time, and we were at least 11 hours away from any family. So just Tammy and I and 2 small children, and she was pregnant. And we didn't know, you never know when the baby's going to come. And there were some ladies at church that basically said, well, there was a lady at church that said, whenever you need me, you call. I don't care if it's 4 a.m., I don't care if it's 7 p.m., you call. And Tammy said, well, we don't know how long we're going to be there. John will be there with me, and this could be like, a 15-hour deal, whatever. She said, don't worry, I've got people. So they, it was I forgot the time, but it was a 3 or 4 a.m. call, and she came over, and there was a rotation until we didn't need the rotation anymore. Well, that was huge in our lives, and probably more of a direct impact than a lot of teaching or preaching or things like that. And I use that as an example because everything matters. People do things behind the scenes to help each other, and to think that because someone can't, is not a great song leader or is not a great preacher or is not a great teacher, that they have less value is completely wrong. So keep this passage here is how we relate to each other, that we all bring something to the table, that everything all members of the family have value and are of great value. Before I move on, any comments or reactions? I'll move forward. Starting in verse 9. I'll start in the first, I'll go through 13. Let love be genuine, abhor what is evil, hold fast to what is good, love one another with brotherly affection, outdo one another in showing honor. Do not be slothful in zeal, be fervent in spirit, serve the Lord, rejoice in hope, be patient in tribulation, be constant in prayer, contribute to the needs of the saints and seek to show hospitality. Let love be genuine. I'm not going to go back to where I imagine most everybody in here is familiar with 1 Corinthians 13, but let love be genuine. Not a superficial act of being friendly to each other, but genuinely be involved with each other, care for each other, and look for opportunities to serve. Abhor what is evil, hold fast to what is good. Run from evil. Love one another with brotherly affection. Outdo one another with showing honor. How do we outdo one another with showing honor?
Heirs or do something to show how righteous you are, because none of us are righteous.
Right.
We all have sinned, and that's why Christ came to this earth. As far as outdoing anybody, you're not worthy of outdoing anybody.
But it says outdo one another in showing honor. How do we do that?
Just be yourself. Be Christians. Be godly.
It's another way of saying love one another with brotherly affection. It's caring for each other. It's being ourselves.
I think it's a good way to put it. We all have egos, and I think at times we get beyond ourselves. Mm-hmm. We need to practice not saying I, we, and I think that's a key part of showing what a Christian's life is. It's kind of hard when you keep saying, I did this, I did that, I was great at this, I was great at that, because we weren't great at anything. Mm-hmm. The greatness will be the day of judgment, and will be recognized by the one who is important to.
And we see people, and I think this congregation seems to be very good at it, that excel, whether it be in ball, or whether it be with the teens, or whether it be obeying the gospel, or whatever, that they are shown, I think they're shown honor even when they're presented a Bible from the congregation. It's a way of saying, we understand that this is a big deal. And so we recognize that and honor them in the graduates with recently with their celebration. It's a way to celebrate with them by showing them honor on what they've accomplished.
That's true, and I think another word you could use there is respect.
Yeah.
You know, showing each other respect, whether you're old or young, you know, whatever, you know, as being part of the family, that we all show each other respect. That has some contrast here. Don't be lazy in zeal, be fervent in spirit. Rejoice in hope, be patient in tribulation, be constant in prayer. Patient in tribulation is not easy. Constant in prayer, I think it's oftentimes we have, I can say I have a tendency to, you know, when things are maybe really good or really bad or some extreme, there might be more prayer, but prayers, going to God should be something that's a habit that we're doing on a regular basis, good times and bad times and so times, and it helps keep us centered. Contribute to the needs of the saints and seek to show hospitality. And I think, and it's worth saying that, you know, when in the context here, that the hospitality, I mean, when you think of hospitality, you think of having someone for lunch, you know, or dinner, having someone over at your house. And that's appropriate. I'm not saying that's not appropriate. I mean, we should be doing that. But hospitality at this time, you know, could mean having someone stay at your house for a week or two. Stranger, you know, a Christian, but a stranger. So when we see that, just understand that what it's saying to seek to do is much greater than having someone over for 2 or 3 hours for lunch or dinner. Contribute to the needs of the saints. That's something we have all a responsibility to do, to help our fellow Christians that might be in times of difficulty. And we see the example of that. That was not limited in this time. This wasn't limited to with intra-congregational giving. It wasn't limited to, you know, okay, here's our family, here's our local family here, and so is struggling, so we're going to help them. It included giving to Christians that were in other cities or in other parts of the world. Right. Mm-hmm. That's a great point, and we see, contribute to the needs, and obviously we first think of giving financial offering, but contributing to the needs of others could be giving of your time, giving of your. I've been on both sides of this, where we've been in a situation where we had a car that was in the shop, and we didn't have, and there was a family member or a member of our church that had an extra vehicle. They let us drive for a few weeks, and then like 5 years later, we had an extra vehicle at our house, in our household, and there was another family. Same thing happened to them. Their car broke down, and we were able to lend them. I mean, that's a small example, but it is, when we think of contribute, it's not just financial. Being aware of the needs of our of our brothers and sisters and helping them out as we can. This last section in the chapter is probably the hardest one of all. And not all this is easy, but bless those who persecute you, bless and do not curse them. Rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep, live in harmony with one another, do not be haughty, but associate with the lowly. Never be wise in your own sight. Repay no one evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all. If possible, as so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. To the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink, for by doing so, you will help heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Bless those who persecute you. It's a very tough pill to follow. It's one thing to say, just, there's here, don't repay evil with evil. I think we all understand the concept, you hear the thing, two wrongs don't make a right. But to say, bless those who persecute you, that's pretty hard.
Christians, because you can pray for them.
Mm-hmm.
You can assist them. I think that sometimes things arise because we don't have a relationship with a brother or sister or another Christian, and we can do things that possibly in kindness that will make them aware. It'll help bridge the gap. Give us some foundation to improve your relationship with that person.
It's true. I think this doesn't just apply to fellow Christians, that what this is talking about here, but you're absolutely right. And oftentimes, it's oftentimes we get I'll say but I'm sure I'm not alone. There's times that I've felt like someone's done me wrong, and then I think about it, and I get more information on the subject, and I realize that I really wasn't done wrong, or maybe I'm the one that was in the wrong because I just didn't. So that when it talks about living, never be wise in your own sight, that's part of this. Because a lot of times when people are doing us wrong, or we think that we're taking offense at things and we don't really know, and a lot of it may be built kind of tied up with our own sense of puffed up sense of self, and why we're taking offense to things. Rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. It seems common sense. Oftentimes, there's as human nature, there can be jealousy. And do we really, something good happens to someone, are we really happy for them, or are we, jealous? But especially with our brothers and sisters, something good happens. Talked about celebrating the graduates and other things. That's the time to rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. Being involved with people in times of loss, times of struggle. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty. I think that's the same concept. If we get haughty, then our sense of self is too great, and then we take offense at things, and it's about feeling like you're not offered the respect that you should, and getting offended, and a lot of things like that. Associate with lowly. I think we can, that can be applied in a lot of different ways. But we're all created by God, And we should never be in a position where we are think ourselves superior to someone else. Repay no one evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all. That reminded me, there's a psalm. I'm not going to read the whole psalm because it's a fairly long one. I'd say it's fairly long. It's not really short. But when you read the Psalms, there's a lot of Psalms that we'll read that if we study the Psalms, we kind of gravitate to, Psalm 23, it's wonderful. There's several other Psalms that they're just wonderful and encouraging. And then there's Psalm 109. And Psalm 109 is David being persecuted. And I'm going to read excerpts from this psalm. And again, this is not the psalm that we have that we typically look to. Wicked and deceitful, and I'm going to kind of skip around. So if you try to read with me, it might be hard. But just listen to me. Be not silent, O God of my praise. Wicked and deceitful mouths are opened against me, speaking against me with lying tongues. They encircle me with words of hate and attack me without cause. In return for my love, they accuse me, but I give myself to prayer. So they reward me evil for good and hatred for my love. Okay, now here's what David wants. Appoint a wicked man against him. Let an accuser stand at his right hand. When he is tried, let him come forth guilty. Let his prayer be counted as sin. May his days be few. May another take his office. May his children be fatherless and his wife a widow. May his children wander around and beg, seeking food far from the ruins they inhabit. May the creditor seize all that he has. May strangers plunder the fruits of his toil. Let there be none to extend kindness to him, nor any pity to his child, nor any pity to his fatherless children. May his posterity be cut off. I could go on and on and on. You're getting the picture here. This is a man after God's own heart, who is being treated unjustly. People are lying about him. People are attacking him that he has done no wrong to. And he is so angry that he wants them to be a wicked man to judge them. And terrible things not just to happen to the men, but their whole families to be wiped out. Okay, but here's the punchline. If you read to the end, all of this he's saying, in the end, this is what he wants God to do. And he's turning it over to God. He's not saying, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm justified in doing this. Or, justice will be done, and I will handle it. He is saying, he is laying it all, he is bearing his heart to God, saying, these people have done me wrong, and this is how I feel right now. But at the end, he turns it over to God. And that's in conformance with verse 19. Never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. I heard a story many years ago. I don't know if it's true or not, but I enjoyed the story. I appreciate so much that whether or not it's true, I like to repeat it. Benjamin Disraeli was a British prime minister, famous British prime minister, who had a very long career, political career in the 1800s. And he, early in his career, he decided that if he was going to stop and respond to everybody that did him wrong, we're talking about politics, so people lie, people are deceitful, people do, they're double deal, and if he was going to stop and try to get revenge on everybody that did him wrong, he would not get very far, because that's all he would be consumed by is getting revenge. So what he decided to do was he had a sheet of paper, and he wrote down everybody's name that did him wrong, and he just kept it in his desk. And he looked years later. He looked at that list, and he saw that basically everybody got what they deserved. without him having to do anything about it. Without him having to do anything about it. So what's the point? Vengeance is God's. Things happen. The time frame may not suit our desire for immediate justice or immediate, but we don't need to worry about making every wrong right. And we don't need to worry about exacting revenge or justice or things like that, because justice will come. It's not even. I'll set aside the whole idea that if there's true justice, then we're all doomed, because probably there's people out there that I'm the guy that they want justice against, and we could all say that, but. So the concept here is, let's leave that to God. We need to worry about doing right. We need to worry about loving others and conducting ourselves in an appropriate way, and loving and caring for each other, even those that aren't perfect, even those that do us wrong, and let God handle sorting it all out, who's done right and who's wrong. Comments on that?
It sounds pretty rough to me. That sounds very sinful, what David was doing, very sinful. Instead of praying for them that done you wrong, should have been praying for them to help change them. Let God handle it from that way.
That's a good question.
Sound like he was pretty.
But okay. Let me say this. No, I agree. I'm not. I think that's something that we see with David, and part of the reason that he was of the heart that he had was that when he would pray, he was going to God. David was going to God. He was bearing his heart to God. This is what I'm feeling right now. This is what I want. And what's important, I think we all understand, but you're right. Those are not Christian thoughts that he had. And I'm not saying that having those thoughts is acceptable, but what the important takeaway from that is despite having those thoughts, David, he turned it to God. And I think we're all going to, whether it be anger, whether, you pick the subject, we're all going to struggle with having thoughts and that aren't right, with anger, holding on to things that we shouldn't, different things. We'll all struggle with those. And David was very open with what he was feeling with God, but turned it to him, and didn't dictate to God what he should do. Said, "This is what I want you to do." And so I think that's part of what makes David such a remarkable figure, is because he was not perfect. Yes, and that's why in reading through just the different Psalms over the years, there's a couple other that are like that, but this is the most stark. That it's pretty. He's pretty raw when he.
Would you do that?
Yeah, or worse, make him suffer, and take all their stuff away, and so. But the concept is that, first of all, recognize that in the long run, justice is going to be done, and we don't need to concern ourselves with justice, certainly not of others, and. So we need to concern ourselves with is how we're acting, how we're conducting ourselves, how we're treating others, how we're interacting with others. And we should be, and why do we treat our enemies this way? Why should we treat those that are treating us wrong this way? I think there's multiple reasons. First of all, is that's how we show Jesus. In a sense, we're all enemies of Jesus because we all sin in our lives. Yet he made the ultimate sacrifice for us. So Another reason why is that sometimes we think of people as our enemies because we think they're doing us wrong, when it's a lot more complicated than that. And acting like they're our enemies and treating is, it's kind of turns into Hatfields and McCoy things where we're just, I'm angry at him and I'm going to treat him this way, and he's going to be angry at me and he's going to treat me that way. And eventually, whatever started it, we don't even remember what it was. We just know that we don't like each other, and it's very easy to fall into that trap. You see that with children. Well, you see it with adults, but it's real clear with children. You'll see children that there'll be a spark, and all of a sudden the kids are, you see your children they're angry, and you ask them what they're angry about, and it's like, wait, is that? And you realize there's a whole lot more that's been going on that they've held on to. So that's Romans 12. Real easy challenge to us, just to live as all throughout our lives, 24 hours a day, as living sacrifices. Thank you all for being here.